we've got to reconcile our differences. So we need a Secretary of Reconciliation, just as we have a Secretary of Education, a Secretary of Labor. We need a Secretary of Reconciliation who would report directly to a president, not this president, directly to a president. And the job would be to reconcile our differences, and that reconciliation for me, I say this with no shame, no embarrassment. I am unapologetically black, and I say this, that would include reparations for the 240 years of free labor that people still benefit today from, and that we were locked out of opportunities along the way while they were benefiting. So I believe in reparations. And Reverend, there are some people who don't want reparations, but here's my solution to that. I'll take their share.
So we got to talk about a pretty revealing moment that happened at Al Sharpton's National Action Network conference. And if you followed these types of events before, you already know the general tone. It's a space where a lot of political messaging is centered around systemic critiques of the country and a push for more government-driven solutions. And what made this moment stand out is that even in a room where most people are expected to be on the same page politically, you saw the clear disagreement that exposed some deeper tensions underneath the surface. And that matters because the people in these rooms are not just talking, they are shaping narratives, influencing policy discussions, and ultimately affecting decisions that impact everyday Americans, including issues tied to constitutional rights and broader political priorities. So when something cuts through the usual messaging and forces a more uncomfortable conversation, it's worth paying attention to, not just because of the moment itself, but because of what it reveals about the direction of these political conversations and how stable those coalitions really are. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and check this out.
When you're the commander, you get some say in who your other crew members are going to be. So the last thing I would want in a space shuttle crew would be 7 white guy, U.S. Navy, test pilots like me. It would be a disaster.
At its core, what you're seeing here is a familiar political dynamic where elected officials and activists show up to speak to a specific audience and make promises or suggestions about what they're going to deliver. And one of the biggest examples right now is the ongoing conversation around reparations, where there's a lot of rhetoric implying that some form of financial compensation could happen at the federal level. But when you actually step back and look at the political reality, the legislative hurdles, and the lack of broad support across the country, it becomes very difficult to see how something like that would realistically pass in the way it's being presented. And that's where frustration starts to build because people begin to question whether they're being given a genuine plan or simply being told what they want to hear during election cycles. And when someone points that out, it often gets labeled as disloyal or controversial. But the underlying point is about expectations versus outcomes, because if voters are being encouraged to believe that a major policy like that is around the corner, then it's reasonable for them to ask it's reasonable for them to ask whether there is an actual path to making it happen. And what's interesting is that in places like California, you're already seeing this tension play out in public forums where people are demanding significant financial compensation while lawmakers continue to discuss the idea without delivering a clear or actionable end result. And now you're starting to see a shift where some individuals are saying they are no longer willing to offer automatic political support without tangible results. And one of those individuals brought that exact message directly into this conference, which immediately created friction in a space where that kind of challenge isn't typically welcome. And also, family, I figured as though instead of speaking in division and divisive rhetoric, how about instead of reparations, maybe, just maybe, when we having a conversation, just let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Maybe reparations, and maybe instead of reparations intended to pay a certain group, how about instead of reparations, which is AKA American taxpayer money, which would be in forms of cutting a check to a certain group of individuals, how about we lower taxes to near none? How about we lower property taxes so we can live the American dream as intended, where we work for what we have and also continue to pass down the American dream that consisted of homes, right? Home ownership being promoted, where we can pass down homes and houses for generation to generation, from grandkids to great grands and so forth and so forth. And not only that, but also being able to preserve everything we work for. Because the beauty of America and the United States of America in itself was that all individuals work hard for what they got. And the harder you work, you could be just as successful as anybody else. It's an equal playing field. All we needed was an opportunity. And if we seize the moment based on our individual choice and we decide that we want to thrive based on how hard we put in the work and the effort, then we can achieve it. And the sky is the limit, right? Because I was always raised on the basis of um, you work hard, you get what you put into life, and at the end of the day, it's about 90% how you respond to a situation and 10% what happens to you. And then with that being said, also, you may not be able to control individuals, but you can also control how the outcome is on how you look at things from a mindset perspective, which can either hold you back or bring you forward. So I say all that to say now you could be in a low income or a hood, a ghetto, or whatever the case may be, but that doesn't make you. But also just having opportunities, maybe just having opportunities around you doesn't mean you have to succumb to that ghetto or that low income or community, because then you can also work your way out of it based on the effort you put. All you need is opportunity, right? We all have to start from somewhere. We all may need a bridge just to get over, but we're still putting in that work and not seeking handouts in any way, shape, or form. So maybe reparations would continue to take taxes from the American taxpayer instead of us decreasing it to near none, because we have to realize that taxes isn't really a necessity or really put into law. It was only used to fund World War. So we just went along with the normalcy of it, but a lot of people think that we are getting back a chunk of monies or something, a reward from the government for paying taxes when you do file taxes and you get a refund. But to be honest, it's just your money that the government held extra of, and they just giving it back to you in return. But why so if you work so hard for it? So how about all Americans, all race, and the beauty and unity of just continue to go forward, understanding that segregation back then in the history of America, it was awful, right? But look how far we came, and unity and peace and love. And how about we just invest and continue to have businesses thrive, expand with the low tax burdens, near to none, Americans being able to preserve more of their monies and being able to take their monies to the dollar store or I said the dollar store, the grocery store, or the dollar store anywhere, and their monies actually is effective because it's not being taxed to death. Their checks that they work hard for are not being taxed to death, right? And also just understanding the simple fact that your dollar isn't stretching as much because it's being taxed to death. I give you an example, right? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Let's just, for the sake of conversation, have got rid of, you know, junk food being funded through EBT. But I come to realize and learn this week that you ever went to the corner store, you ever went to the dollar store and you just wanted to get a bag of Fritos or Frito Lays or, whatever. My grandma loved corn chips. So let's say corn chips, right? Frito Lays, Fritos. And there used to be $1, maybe less. And now you're like $2 for some Fritos. Well, in the form of the government funding and incentivizing individuals, and there's nothing wrong with individuals getting a leg up, right? And I know it's a lot of friction. Individuals disagree that you should work some type of public service hours where you're at least having in total 80 hours in a month. Whether you do service hours or you go to school or you work at least part-time, that sums up to at least 80 hours a month, not a week, but a month to stay on SNAP, food assistance program. But then also junk food would not be a part of it because it's actually promoting, according to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. intentions, healthier foods. Just because you're getting the leg up doesn't mean that you have to put junk or things that's destructive to the individual that need a leg up that qualifies for the assistant in their bodies. But if you would like a Coke or whatever, anything extra, you can work for it by working a job, and then you can get all the snacks you want. But I come to learn from a business perspective that since the government has been incentivizing and using SNAP to fund, follow where I'm going with this, junk food, Frito-Lays and a company like Fritos jacked up the price because they know that they will get guaranteed monies from the government through EBT snack, and a lot of individuals that would seek out this junk food, which then made the cost of Fritos so high, for example. Because the company is like, oh, we can get rich. We're getting funded by individuals on SNAP. But if that's taken away, the cost of Fritos go down because it depends on the consumer market of individuals that work hard for what they get. Not saying the individual that's on SNAP doesn't need a leg up, don't work hard for what they get, but they just need that leg up to get to the other side as they try to figure things out. They may have bills or debt they need to pay. They go into school, they're trying to invest in themselves. They're trying to figure it out. But you take that analogy where companies get greedy because they feel as though the government is incentivizing them. Take that with college, right? If they know that they can charge X amount of dollars because a college student takes out a student loan, they're going to charge the government whatever because the government is paying it. So that same analogy is being spreaded where then it actually continues to raise taxes on the American taxpayer. But the way we get to where things are not being outlandish, pricey or expensive is having people that qualify on a program that actually needs the leg up and getting the help they need to continue to bridge the gap to get over to be successful. But also understanding that if we get to that point where there's no taxes, then the price of chips will go down. And these companies won't get so spoiled to jack prices up because they feel incentivized to do so because the government is going to pay whatever. But the consumers are actually deciding, the individuals who are working hard for what they get, and their monies actually determine, as the customer of Fritos will determine the price, and it puts it back in the hands of the consumer, right? Letting the markets decide. So if individuals decide to stop messing with Fritos and Fritos form of revenue go down because it's no longer incentivized the government, but the actual market is determined that, hey man, you're charging too high for these Fritos. We actually control the markets again in a form of capitalism, and they want their customers to stay continue to be wealthy. And then the individuals won't feel when they go to the grocery store or the gas pump with the gas tax, it won't be jacked up. And then with taxes going down and then no income tax taking place because you have more money in your check, you will feel it even more phenomenal because then you can get all the groceries. You can get way more groceries. You can put more gas in your car. So I'm saying, tying this all to reparations, it can maybe just be seen form as another form of, and from my understanding, is it just will be another form of charging the taxpayer to fund it instead of us actually reducing taxes to have more opportunity and businesses able to expand more and more job opportunities and more companies that continue to expand and want more people can continue to invest in the communities across the country to spread skills and opportunities that individuals can embrace to then have more and more money in their pocket where it will outweigh the form of reparations. Let me know what you think. I'm just having a conversation, but let's get into it.
Briefly, we have to get going in one moment. Step up, tell us your name, and briefly, what's on your mind? Where's Denise?
Let me hold it. Hey, yo, as I look around this room, if you're 35 years old or younger, raise your hand. 4 people. So here's the thing. Y'all in trouble. Yesterday you had Al Green up here talking about we need a Secretary of Reconciliation, and then that's going to include what he said was reparations, which, by the way, wasn't reparations. Reparations is more than a check, but the very first thing it is a check. And come this year during the midterms and in 2028, if you don't have our check, you won't get no vote. No check, no vote. Yeah, I know that ain't what you want to hear, but that's what's happening. All of y'all in here, with all due respect, you're beautiful, but you're old. You're not talking to the youth. You don't know how to talk to the youth. You're trying to tell us what to do. We're not having it no more. So if you want our vote, you got to come with our paper. We're not scared of Trump. We're not scared of anybody. Biden is a racist. Trump is a racist. Kamala is a racist. And if you don't have our money, you don't get our vote. Yeah, not. Who are you? Oh, all right, yeah, so like I was saying, I'm going to land my plane right there, but the Democrats are no better than the Republicans. No check, no vote. Y'all take care. And somebody get my man a tissue. He need a tissue.
Thank you. First, let me clarify something. There are many young people that are part of the National Action Network. I happen to be one of them.
All right, family. So the individual essentially argued that voters should reconsider offering automatic support to any political party without clear follow through, specifically tying that argument to the issue of reparations. And while I've already made it clear that I don't believe reparations are politically realistic at the federal level, given the current landscape, what's noteworthy is how that message disrupts a long-standing expectations of consistent voter alignment. Because the moment people start saying they may withhold their vote unless specific demands are met, it changes the dynamic entirely. It introduces leverage into a relationship that has historically been more predictable. And even if the premise behind the demand is unlikely to materialize, the strategy itself, questioning whether support should be automatic, has real implications. And that's why the reaction from Al Sharpton was so strong, because messaging like that has the potential to weaken political cohesion within a key voting bloc. And rather than engaging purely on the feasibility of the policy or the liking of the policy being discussed, the response focused on pushing back against the idea of withholding support altogether, which highlights just how sensitive that shift in mindset can be. Because once voters begin to think more transactionally about their support, it forces a different kind of accountability that many political organizations are not used to dealing with. So when that message was delivered directly in that setting, and it was almost guaranteed to spark a reaction, and the way it played out sounds a lot, it says a lot, I should say, says a lot about the broader political landscape right now.
Let me say, in terms of our report for the year, and then we're going to go on with the program. Our young people are rehearsing, getting ready for this afternoon. Is our youth day. I heard somebody talk about young people. They tell them to just stay around. They're going to see two people, afternoon, all of the youth in there. And I don't know, but you get provocateurs, because anybody that is talking to somebody younger than them holding the mic, then you know that they paid agents. And if you're in the room, if you don't like me saying that, I'll say it again. Because you cannot get reparations without putting people in office that's going to pay them. So talk that ignorance somewhere else. You know, people talking about we have been for all of our existence fighting for reparations, made every candidate pledge to it. You cannot get reparations unless you elect folk that's going to pay it. Who you going to pay yourself? So you can't at one hand say, don't vote for everybody, they racist, but I want reparations. Well, who going to pay you? So either you paid or you stupid or both. I mean, I don't see nobody standing up. I didn't see whoever it was, but yeah, okay.
When you look at the full exchange, it becomes clear that the reaction wasn't just about disagreement. It was about the implications of what was being said, because questioning long-standing political loyalty, especially in a very direct and public way, puts pressure on organizations and figures whose influence depends on maintaining that consistency. And more broadly, it reflects a growing conversation about whether voters should continue supporting any party without clear and measurable results. Now, to be clear, I've said throughout this that I don't believe reparations are a realistic or achievable policy at the federal level under current conditions. But separate from that, the larger issue being raised is about accountability and expectations. Because if political messaging continues to suggest that major outcomes are possible without a clear path to achieving them, then it's inevitable that some voters are going to push back and reconsider how they engage. And from a broader political standpoint, turnout and voter behavior play a significant role in election outcomes. So even shifts in enthusiasm or participation can have a meaningful impact, which is why conversations like this get such strong reactions. And ultimately, whether people agree or disagree with the approach being taken, the moment itself highlights an underlying intention that's become harder to ignore. And that's why it stood out. So with that being said, let me know what you think down in the comments, whether you agree or disagree. I want to hear a perspective. Make sure you like the video, share with someone who might find it interesting. Subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications so you don't miss the next one. Peace, family.